Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the throne room. We are excited to have our first number one meeting, numero uno meeting in the
Yes.
throne room for Barbershop Conversations. And we want to welcome you in. We're going to give a moment for people to get in. I'm excited. Ned, are you?
I am extremely excited today. This is
Yeah,
another opportunity for us to touch lives, and this is exciting moments and an exciting season.
that's right. That's right. We've been working really hard and we've been really contemplating how are we going to get this thing going, what we need to do in order to see that the people find these things useful. And I want to say, first and foremost, you guys are all awesome. Like the feedback and the responses that we received.
Wow.
I mean, it was just phenomenal. I didn't think so. So when we first started this, I didn't think it was going to be the way it was, right? I thought
No.
it was something real smooth, right? But it ended up being exactly what it needed to be. And so I'm excited. Ned is excited, and we can't wait to jump into conversation. I see people jumping in, and so we just want to give everybody a moment to kind of get acclimated, share, like and share, like and share. And remember, do not forget, we want to hear from you. So we want to hear you.
Absolutely.
Comment, ask questions, get in, get involved. We want to hear it. If you have friends, brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, everybody needs to be in this conversation today. We want to hear from you. So
Absolutely.
comment, ask questions, get in. I hear it. That's right. Share it. That's right. We all in it. We all in it.
That's right.
I ain't mad at it. Let's see. All right, y'all. Let's get into the room. The throne room. A
Yes.
space that we've created to heal from our wounds, right? That thing, purge from all of our issues, heal from our wounds, and find rest so that we may transform into that which we have been called and created to become, and that is royalty.
Yeah.
And so this evening, we are going to be talking about the strong man's journey. So I call it the miseducation of a strong man, right? And for me, this is really important and pivotal conversation because as I've encountered men in my life, I've encountered a lot of men who really were misinformed or had thoughts that a strong man looked a certain type of way. And as I continued in my journey, I began to realize that everybody's definition and thought process about what a strong man was different. And so I'm here to kind of help create this space, right? And I'll get into just a little brief about how we started the barbershop conversations in the throne room. But essentially, it really was around breaking this stigma about who a strong man was and who it represented, and actually what it represented. Because I saw that a lot of people really were like, oh, well, no, that's for weak. You weak if you doing this. Like, you walk around and in my age, it's like, oh, you weak, son, you weak because you doing this. And I'm like, but that's essentially what I want out of a man. That's not showing weakness. That's actually shows me strength and humility. And why would you think that was weak? In any event, this conversation right here really started from a couple of years ago. I had challenged my dad and I was talking to him. We were talking about something with regards to, what people need to hear. And I was like, why don't we create this thing? And he's like, but I'm not ready yet. And, I'm not prepared to have the conversation. I got to get right before I have it. And I'm like, but people need to hear where you are right now because you learned something, you gained some insights to things that they have yet to gain insight into. And so as I thought about it, barbershop came up in my mind, and I know people hear it all the time, but for me, the barbershop was really a space where it was intersectional, it was cross-generational, it bared a place in which different perspectives came to the table, but there was also wisdom bearing that happened inside of the barbershop. And so I'm hoping that as we have these conversations, that wisdom is being bestowed upon the people, that we can have real conversations that are taboo per se to talk about in the open. It has to happen behind sanctuary closed doors, right, in the barbershop where we could talk about those things, and really be real about what it is that our men face. So our men face some real tough issues, and unfortunately, our society does not give them room to be able to really speak about the things in which they really face. And so this is where we are, Ned. I appreciate you. Ned has come to this conversation, and I want to say out of sheer obedience, right? So I think it was literally, this is what you call a true friend who calls and checks up on you out the blue and say, hey, how you doing, right? And I'm saying, I just had a dream, right? I just thought about you, and this is what I thought about. And he's like, word, I heard this too. Like I've been working on this too. And so God does what God does best, and he aligned the stars and all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
And here we are. So Ned, tell us about barbershop conversations from your perspective.
Well, thank you again for opening this door and allowing me an opportunity to be obedient once again, or as best as I can in all of my dysfunction. So barbershop conversations to me is I guess the best analogy that I have come up with is kind of, it's a rites of passage location. It's a place where, men are allowed to be men, allowed to speak about those things without feeling judged or under certain parameters or guidelines. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about, and be okay with sharing. And so in this process, I firmly believe that when we do that, we're able to identify our areas that we need to work on, identify our strengths, our weaknesses, and then grow as a person, and be able to be a better person for self first, and then for those who we're connected to. And so as we identify those areas that we need to talk about and those areas that we need healing, then we better ourselves. And I think that's what barbershop's going to be about. And I hope that happens for everybody.
Yeah, that's really good. People oftentimes think that, just because men have these little small spaces whereby they can go and talk to other men, that they just automatically assume that men just open up. And essentially, I don't think that that's true, but I'm not the man, so I don't know. But I think that we have to be more intentional about being vulnerable and about being open and things like that,
right.
In our world. And so here we are taking the cover off. We're being curious. We're being open-minded. We're being vulnerable. We're going to show empathy, and we're going to respect the process towards what that looks like as men kind of come into this whole thing thinking about things that they've experienced and ways in which they need to now view their lives and the next stage that God possibly has for them to go, as they seek their own healing journey.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about the spaces that you've had, or if any, in order for you to kind of, find your way along the healing journey.
So for me, it was, I think, as I stated before, my healing process started out of obviously my damaged place. Right. It literally was something that was birthed out of my divorce. And as I was struggling with trying to redefine Ned and figure out Ned, and even reassess my purpose as a dad, even how do I be a dad from outside of the home and the family I had created. So that's what started for me the process of healing, because in doing that, I started finding these areas that were weak and that I needed to shore up and support better and develop more. And so my healing started in those areas. It was like, it was literally the identifying where I'm short, my shortcomings are, and being intentful about how do I correct those behaviors? How do I change that mindset? How do I, nurture the things that need to be nurtured within Ned? Because ultimately it was about being a better person for me, first and foremost, and then secondly, being a better dad, and then also being a better, man in my community. Those things all lined up as I started figuring out what was going on with this guy called Ned.
Right. So how does a man begin to identify his shortcomings? Because that's a big task to consume. I'm thinking about the ego. I'm thinking about all kinds of things that getting away from us being able to identify that.
Yeah. So real talk, Monica, it's really not that difficult to identify the areas, right?
Okay.
Most of us know what our areas are. The hard task is addressing them, right? The hard task is stepping to the table, looking in the mirror and saying, I want to change that. Because when we all look at ourselves, we know what's going on in us. We know what we do. We, as adults, we are aware of the areas that we're like, hey, I probably need to cut back on that, or I probably need not to do that, or I shouldn't be doing this. And a lot of times, like myself, I've done some things and was like, I know I'm wrong for doing this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. You know what I mean? So in your head and in your spirit, like, yeah, you out of pocket. But knowing it and then addressing it are the two different elements. And I think that's where we struggle at for men is, I want you to accept me for who I am, the way I am right now. You know what I mean? With all my dysfunction, with all my stuff, you know what I mean? This is me. You know what I mean? And we're quick to say, this is me. This is who I am. Well, okay. Who you are is broken.
Right.
And so if you're broken, why would you want to stay there? If you're broken, why wouldn't you want to fix that? If you're broken, why wouldn't you try to find some corrective measures? When we talk to kids, for example, as an ex-educator, we're always talking to kids about, doing these corrective behavior plans.
Right.
How do I get you from point A to point B? Here's the plan to help you get there. Do these steps. So as adults, we need those same corrective behavior plans. We need to be looking at our behavior and figuring out, how do I change that? Because it doesn't work. And I had a conversation with one of my sons just the other day about operating in that place of insanity, right? When we're just like, hey, this is just it. And you're like, yo, dude, the result is the same. So why would you keep doing the same thing knowing that your result's not going to change? Change the behavior, get a different result. And so that becomes the issue. It's not about identifying as much. Some of us really need to take a moment to look in the mirror and figure out what some of our bigger or deeper seated issues are. But some of the surface stuff, if you're, I'm consuming more alcohol than I should. If your language of, you cursing everybody out because you can't get a full sentence without putting at least half of it being curse words in there. And it offends people. Those things. The areas that you can touch immediately and start there. And then you start figuring out like, okay, and now I go to that start, as we say, start peeling the onion and get to the next layer and then the next layer.
Right. So even with what I heard you say, the piece about, accept me for who I am right now and I'll work on it later. What's the danger in accepting people for right where they are, no matter what? What danger does that bring?
Oh, listen, it is a powder keg waiting to explode. I mean, it's emotional suicide.
Yeah.
Because you basically have said to someone, I see your dysfunction. I see the issues, the concerns, the things that you don't bring to the table or whatever it may be. But I'm going to say to you, come into my space anyway. And this is a male or female moment, really. I mean, I don't think, even though for men it's important to understand it, but you can't, I think I said this in our last session, you can't come to a relationship knowing that you're bringing, daggers to the table and you're asking somebody to just come sit here and just, let's just cut ourselves up. No, you have to start dealing with your stuff. You have to be able to manage who you are, because you're just going to create more damage. You're going to hurt someone. You're going to cause other people to be in a place that's unhealthy, to cause them to be in a place that is, again, social and emotional and spiritual suicide, because they're literally going to slowly kill themselves by attaching themselves to damaged material.
Yeah, that's really good. And to be honest, that is something that I struggled with, right? I always
Mm.
took on these guys who were like, accept me for who I am right now.
They were your
And
projects.
yeah, right, they were. And essentially it became where almost I lost myself, right? Because I was so busy trying to figure out, okay, well, how can I potentially help them get to where they need to be, not even recognizing that while I'm trying to help force them to see what I see in them, that I'm like slowly being ripped apart,
Right,
not
right.
being able to stand. And then when it's all said and done, I look around and I'm exhausted and I'm worn out.
Mhm.
And it's for me, I guess I want to ask some questions with regards to that piece, because I think it's oftentimes we miss the mark about what the
Mm.
purpose of relationship is, and the dynamics in which we are supposed to come to the relationship. And so is it a responsibility of women to actually help the man to heal, right? Is that a responsibility? I have a take on it as I've gone through a process of it, but I don't think that I might have it all. And we're going to put this out here. Anything that we say here in the throne room is not it. It is not
It
the
is
end
not.
all
That's
be
right.
all.
It's not the
It
end all.
doesn't we have the answers to anything.
Mhm.
Please seek additional counseling. I mean, counseling is great. It gives and provides a great framework, but there's some internal work that you need to do. And so we're going to give you the opportunity to begin that thinking about
Start the
yourself right
process.
here.
That's right.
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 So just for that sake, I just wanted to put that out there. But go ahead,
Yeah.
Ned. Is it our responsibility? How should this
Healing starts independently, right? As an
right?
individual. It is a internal process that each person has to accept and hold on to independently. The gray area, I guess I'll call it, for lack of a better term, is when you're in a relationship where you're with your spouse, your significant other, and at that point in time, you determine that there is a healing needed. And then
Mm.
collectively, that becomes a party concern. It is not the woman's responsibility to heal the man,
Nor is it the man's
nor is the
responsibility
man's
to heal the
responsibility to
woman.
heal the woman, right? It is incumbent upon us to support each other through our healing process.
Right.
We were not created to be isolated. We were
Mhm.
created to commune and to
That's
come together and support each other. So if I'm with my significant other and I know that she's going through some healing that she has identified and she has willingly take on the responsibility of trying to help correct or do better, then absolutely I should be there to support that and help that and even be accountable for her, to hold her accountable to those things that she says that she wants to get better at.
right.
It's not my job to do it for her.
Right.
I said to, and again, forgive me, I use analogies around my children often
All
as a
right. That's
parent,
what we're supposed to do. I understand.
but I say to my sons often, I can't want your stuff more than you want it.
Yes.
I can't say to you, hey, listen, your goals matter more to me than they matter to you. That just doesn't work because he'll never get it. And all he'll ever become is still a greater dependent on me.
Right.
In relationships, we have a habit of doing that. That's why you made your comment earlier, and I stated about the project. We get in a lot of relationships, and I'm guilty of this too, of being in relationships where I take on the project. That person becomes this, hey, I see the potential in them. I just got to help them see it. Well, I can identify it and I can say to you, but ultimately I can't want it more than you want. And
Yeah.
so, that responsibility is incumbent upon that person to take it on, male or female. So it is not the woman's responsibility to, take him by the hand and cross the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
She can say to him, hey, I'm gonna walk across the street with you and
Right.
make sure that you stay within the lines and of the crosswalk. But
Yeah.
ultimately, if he chooses to go out of the crosswalk, she's gonna be like, all right, I'll meet you on the other side, maybe if you show up. If you don't, know that it wasn't me. Because no one should be able to point a finger at another individual and say, this happened because of you. Um,
Right.
there are some circumstances in life that basically are thrusted upon us. But for the most part, it is a willing decision to get into a relationship. And if you know for a fact, and most of us know from the front door that, this person might not be the best person for me. They've shown me their true colors at the door. Why am I continuing the relationship? Why am I getting myself deeper into the relationship? So that now there's now not only this physical attraction, but now there's an emotional attachment and now all these other components because you've done some things that now have kind of binded you together for a long haul. And you're like, wow, I should have never been here.
Right.
If you would do the homework at the beginning, you might not have been there,
Yeah.
and that was a moment for Ned.
Listen, it's a moment for all of us. One of the other things that you said was about people were created to commune and to be in communion. And I think that there's a thin line or a misunderstanding about, or even I'll even throw it to a tad bit further, that we misrepresent communion for codependency.
Yeah.
And so I want to kind of talk about what codependency looks like from the perspective of the unhealed and the broken man, right? And I think that maybe this might be a need to have conversation more in depth and detail on another show, but getting the transition between the broken man, the toxic man, the healed man, and the, I think we need to get clear definition of who those men are. But right now, talk about a little bit about what you see as far as that codependency piece and the unhealed man.
Wow. It's probably the biggest issue for most men, especially in our relationships. We are, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, guilty of attaching ourselves to someone or leeching ourselves to someone to sustain ourselves, which causes so many other elements or so many other issues. It's that leech mentality that creates scorned women.
Right.
Because they feel like I put so much into you and then you just walk away. Well, he walked away because you started depleting your resources, or he went and leached to the next person. So that codependency mindset is scary because it definitely destroys individuals. It destroys families. It destroys, dreams and admirations of an individual. And that's both ways, but in men in particular who are designed, created, and meant to lead and spearhead and pioneer, it becomes more damaging because of the fact that you are completely out of your element when you become a dependent in a relationship or in a situation where, your creation was to set the tone.
Yeah. That's really good. I think that a lot of people misunderstand even the fact that why women get into relationships with men that are like that. And I think that oftentimes is because we have a nurturing spirit, and because we're nurturers, that thought of, if I nurture him, then he will be this type of person to me, is at the forefront of the mind. And so from my perspective, from this end, what would you say to the woman who sees the man in that way, right?
Thank you.
Put it all on you. I'm putting it on you.
That was a nice setup. Look how you did that. What do I say to the sister?
We're gonna get rude. We're gonna get open in here.
Wow. Man.
As best you can.
That was really loaded. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So what do I say? I mean, instinctively I want to just say, like, run.
Run. No, girl, no. You'll see him right behind you. It's like a scary movie, right? He's right behind you.
But ideally and realistically, I can only say to my sisters to do a thorough assessment of that individual. I would be wrong to say to anybody to run. Even though everything in me sometimes screams run when you run across that person that you've identified as like, oh my God, this is not going to go well. But I'm gonna ride it out and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ride it out from afar. I use the terms often. Cautious optimism is always the best. And so you trudge forward, but do it very cautiously. You want to make sure that you're crossing every T and dotting every I in the relationship, because, true behavior shows itself over time. and,
Mm-hmm.
and if a person shows you their true nature, understand that that's what it is. And if you care, and we all should care about an individual, you should be cognizant of saying, hey, listen, here's some things about you that really don't line up for me. And that person then has the responsibility to say, well, this is who I am. You got to take me for who I am. Or they say, you know what, you're right. That's some stuff I want to work on. Maybe we can do that together. If they're not willing to address those concerns or tackle those concerns that you may bring to the table, then yeah, that means that you need to run. You need to, say, listen, maybe we can just be friends. I like you as a friend, but I can't align my spirit with you if you're not willing to, at least address those concerns. Now, some people might be a little over the top, and we understand that. And some people be like, listen, I just need you to here's my checklist. And the checklist ain't realistic, but right. Within yourself, I mean, when I always tell people, when you do mirror moments, you're really looking at what's working, what's not working. What do I need to deal with within me? And if someone identifies something and it lines up with what you've already said about yourself, then it's real and you should address it. And, if you aren't willing to or aren't able to, then maybe you need to, like I said before, that's a relationship that's destined to cause problems for you, and it's an unhealthy relationship, and you shouldn't be in it and shouldn't want to be in it.
Yeah. We have a whole segment planned for relationships.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold off because there's so much more that I can say into that piece, but we're gonna leave that. But what I really want to know, so I went from saying, is it our responsibility, to actually now I would like us to kind of talk about how do we help our men heal, right? What are the things that we do need to do, and what do we need to create, environments that we need to create? Where does it begin? Where does it start to help our men heal?
Wow. So this is going to come across initially kind of abrasive, but it is what it is, right? Because that's where we are. And we can't heal unless we, sometimes have to rip the Band-Aid off and let it breathe. So the first part for women is really to stop babying our men. Stop treating them like they're your children. Stop treating them like they're your project, like you are the means to their existence. It really isn't that for you. You are created to be a helpmate. You are created to be the support system. You are created to help men move the family forward. But it's not your responsibility to lead, to push the wagon. It's your responsibility to make sure that the wagon stays intact. It is your responsibility to make sure that there's a wagon, even maybe, but not your job to drive the wagon. That's what your man should be doing. And I think the sooner that women are clear about that role, it forces men to have to step up to the plate to do their role. And I know that sounds kind of like I'm putting some onus on sisters. And I am to some degree, because it is a collective agreement. Women and men are responsible for building the family. And so the only way that happens is if both parties are at the table and being held accountable for what they're supposed to do. I heard someone recently, and it was just crazy to me, but someone recently said something about, men being these, the man is supposed to do his responsibility, his roles, his jobs, his long list of everything from taking out the trash to making sure the oil in the car is changed to whatever that list that, quote unquote, makes that the man's responsibility. But then in the other end of the scope, it's, the sister's responsibility, the woman's responsibility is a list too of things that, if you're going to hold the male to a standard that was established in 1940 or 1930 or 1920,
the same standard.
then that means that everyone must be held to that standard. If we're going to say in today's society that women are a lot more independent and that women, are breadwinners and can be whatever, and I'm not fighting that or arguing that. So women, please don't think that I'm being male chauvinistic, because I'm not. I'm saying that the standard has to be now readjusted. And what used to fit the standard isn't now the standard. And so that means that there has to be some real conversation about expectations, about what you're looking for from that man. And he needs to be able to say what he's looking for from that woman. The needs have to be talked about, and they should balance. And if they don't balance, then that means that might not be the person for you. Doesn't mean that either one of you are wrong or bad. It just means that maybe this alignment just isn't right, and you need to be lined up with someone else. But yeah, it is a touchy area that, it requires real talk. It requires folks to be transparent. It requires folks to be honest. I'm going to say that last part again. It requires folks to be honest, because you can't get there without honesty. You can't get to that without being real. I had someone recently tell me that they thought that I'm in this new Ned. I'm consistently always letting folks know that, I work really hard at being transparent. And sometimes that annoys the heck out of people, because some folks like, oh, God, here he goes being transparent again. Now I got to hear how he feels. Well, yeah, you do. Because if you don't hear how I feel, then you don't know what's going on with me. And I'm not going to put a facade on and put a mask on my face to make you feel comfortable and then I feel uncomfortable. No, we both going to feel uncomfortable. We'll talk through it and then we'll move on. Or we won't move on. Either way, but we're going to be good, because I'm not going to hold it, hide it, suppress it, cover it up for the benefit of making sure that you still smile when you see my face.
Yeah. So that is really important. So I think that goes back to our general session question about why the barbershop conversation is created and why we need to create spaces for men, and the miseducation of the strong man, really understanding, right, that the people, the thoughts that we have about, oh, if a man shows his feelings, that it either aggravates us, is not wanted, it creates hassle, or it makes people uncomfortable. I think that those are the things and the reasons why we are dealing with the men who show up now, right? And so
everybody wants a roughneck. Everybody wants that hard dude that's like, oh, he a bad boy. He don't take no stuff and da. Yeah, that's a great guy, but that comes with some stuff.
Right.
I
think I said this before. I had this idea when, not too long ago, that it was like, I want a hood nigga who loves Jesus. Like I was like I'm saying,
that's what I want, right? Bring me him, Lord. He needs to be in Timbs and jeans and take no stuff.
And I went in like, I love this tatted whatever dress, long hair. Like, this is what I want, Jesus. And it was like, but every single one of them, they came with all of this stuff, right? And the stuff that was things that I don't think that I was ready for, right? So I wasn't ready for what I was asking for, because the hood nigga came with the hood experiences, with all of the hood baggage, whether they was Louis Vuitton or whoever, whatever it was, they was coming with all that stuff. And I had to essentially shift through, well, was it, which one is the real one and which one is the fake, the imposter bag, right? And so really trying to figure out, well, what was the real thing really became an issue. And so I also realized, and this is really key here, that when I really delved into my own self-reflection, that the man who was the hood nigga really never had a full relationship with Jesus. So they weren't going to ever be the hood nigga who loved Jesus, right? They might have grown up and knowing essentially surface wise because they've been churched and they had some
Right.
type of religion pass through them, but they really didn't have a personal relationship
Relationship.
with God. And so
Right.
I found myself battling them like, why you don't want to go to church? Like, what you mean you don't want, like, what's up? And we want,
Why you don't want to pray again? We were
right, like, I thought you said you love Jesus, right? Like, I'm coming back to what I said I wanted. Like, I had this expectation and I said it was what it was, but
Right.
my expectation was really not what I wanted. And I was actually functioning out of my own brokenness, right?
Correct.
Me
Correct.
wanting that was me trying to hold on to something whereby I misunderstood what the man was supposed to represent in
Right.
my life because I felt like I think that goes back to me wanting the protector. And so all that I saw
Absolutely.
in the protector world was the hood nigga. He gonna protect me,
Because he
right?
represent protection.
Right.
He ain't gonna. That's not ride or die. He gonna fight for me. He gonna do this. He gonna do that. But
He
no,
gonna hold it down.
right.
But
Notice
that
that comes
also
with
meant that he turned to me too, right? So I had to be prepared for that.
right. That means not only will he hold it down, but he's gonna anchor you down.
Right. Right.
And that's the other piece to that. Like you said, I mean, it's all about our perceptions, our misconceptions of what we say we want. And then you start looking at that and think like, man, yeah, this is what I need. I need him. I need that. I need it. And then when you start, like you said, as we said before, you start peeling back the onion and you start realizing, oh shoot, I really don't have what I thought I had. Like, because as I start sifting through, as you used the analogy earlier, all the different bags, like, okay, is that genuine? That ain't real. That no, I don't see the tag on the inside of that bag. That ain't that's bootleg.
Right.
That ain't real. Look at that. The F is the other way. It ain't Fendi. That bag, it looked good from afar until you got a close-up look and got a chance to do an analysis of it, and you got a chance to really check it out. You were like, oh shoot, he got me again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's important for us to, like I said, I mean, to assess the relationships. I mean, I think that when we deal with folks, and let's be real, for men in particular, we're very visual creatures. And I don't think women are far off from that. We're looking at folks from what we see on the outside, what we see from afar. And if it appeals to us, or if it looks like it might be appealing to my palate, then I'm going after it. And then when I first get that first sample of it, I'm like, ooh, that don't taste like it looked. It ain't really what I thought it was. As even though I don't partake of potato salad, they always say you can't eat everybody's potato salad.
That's right.
Because if it look good, don't mean that it tastes right. Because they added something a little different than the other person.
Yeah, putting raisins and stuff.
Right. You're like, what the heck is this? So, before you go digging into the pot, talk about, let me get me a scoop of that.
Yeah.
Ask some questions like, who made the potato salad? You know what I mean? And what you put in it. And okay, do you always make the potato salad? Or is this your first year making the potato salad for the cookout? Like, you want to ask some questions because you want to make sure that you're getting something that's authentic to what you're desiring to have. Right. And it takes time. It takes intentionality. And it takes some courage, because sometimes we're afraid to ask those tough questions because we're thinking, dang, if I ask them that, is it too soon to ask that question? Because I'm like scared them off. Well, if it scared them off, then obviously they're supposed to not be there.
Right.
If they're afraid of the conversation, then that means, hey, thank you for leaving.
So it's funny that you say that. I've met men who are like, I don't really like to talk. I mean, you'll see who I am as we go. And it's like, I don't really want to talk about that right now. Like, so you never really know who they are. And what do you say to that? How do you sift through the fact of the man who's like, I'm showing you what I'm showing you, and it's good, right? But I don't want to talk about all that other stuff right now. It's coming over different, right? It's other words being put in the midst of that, but they're basically saying, I don't really want to talk about that. That's not important, but it's important for us to get into that.
It's necessary. It's not even just important, it's necessary, right?
Mm,
And if you have an individual that does not want to talk about the things that are important to you, your background matters because like for me, for example, and I always use, I'm a dad, right? And so I don't allow anybody around my children until
right,
I processed whether or not that's deemed necessary. Like, okay, you
right,
just like I ain't just meet you tomorrow and you're like, hey, listen, we're gonna do a family day and you gonna meet. No, you don't get to meet my children because I hold them at a high level, right? I hold
right,
Ned at a high level. So in order for me to get you to the place where you're able to come into my inner circle, there's some questions that you got to be able to answer. And if
yeah,
you're not willing to answer them, okay, great. Then we're not together because we can still be friends and we might be cool. And yeah, if you call me, we'd be like, hey, yeah, listen, great, nice checking in on you, but I can't allow you inside if you're not willing to let me inside.
right,
You know what I mean? And so when we do those moments, when we're in relationships where we allow folks to say to us, I ain't really feeling it. I don't like sharing that type of stuff. I don't want to talk about that. That's my past. Well, you're right now is what matters.
my past,
Yeah,
right.
this is what matters.
You
What
put
I'm
the
doing for you
words,
now is
man.
what matters. And you're like, yeah, okay, dude, what you're doing right now really is just surface stuff. And it
Right,
doesn't have any longevity. It doesn't have any sustainability. Like, okay, yep, you were nice. You bought me flowers every day. We've been together for a month and I've seen flowers every day for a month. That's sweet. But I
mm,
don't know where you got the flowers from. Did you steal them flowers? Like, I don't know where the flowers
right,
came from.
right.
So talk, if they're not willing to talk, and this male or female moment, if they're not willing to share, talk, and allow you in, then you shouldn't you shouldn't allow them in. They shouldn't have a key to your private place if you don't have a key to theirs.
That's right. I like that. I have my saying is I date, my kids don't date, right? And
Right.
I don't bring everybody into the picture and they don't, and
Mm-hmm.
me dating you does not mean that we in a relationship. It's really me just
We're friends.
friends. Right, exactly. We just
and,
friends. And
and leave it there
right,
until things have progressed. I mean, I think that's the other thing, that most folks have a habit of just immediately thinking that because we're opposites, we're male and female, that hey, this has got to be going down that road. Well, no, it doesn't necessarily mean that, because you might not line up with me the way I need. You might be a great person. You might even be a phenomenal resource for me.
right,
We're connected as friends. We're colleagues. We're whatever, but you're not my mate until
right.
we've established some other things. There's no foundation here because of the fact that, we like the same colors and our birthdays are coincide. Doesn't mean now that you're my soulmate. That just means that you and I know each other and we have some commonality.
That's right. As we kind of wrap up going into the end,
Mm-hmm.
there are two real important questions that I really
What you
want to
got?
ask you.
What you got?
And the first one really is having everything to do with what we're talking about. So we keep saying strong man, but what does a strong man really look like?
Wow. That's a phenomenal question. And I
Yeah.
don't have a phenomenal answer, right? Because
You can say
it's
to be continued to be worked out, fleshed out.
because it's there's really no real definition to what a strong man is. A person who is, this, and this. There are some elements that probably are across the board. He is a strong shoulder to cry on. He is a guy who you can come to, and he's a confident, a covering, and a friend. Who's someone who is willing to be a protector and sacrifice for you. Those are some qualities and characteristics of a strong man. But what it looks like, it can vary, because my interpretation of sacrifice for you might be different than the next man's interpretation of sacrifice. Doesn't mean his sacrifice is less than mine. His sacrifice might be because it might be from a place where, hey, this is what I can offer and what I do and what this matters to me. One of the examples I use with my dad was a phenomenal provider.
Right.
He was a ridiculous protector, overprotective.
That's my dad. That's how we ended up on this conversation about strong man's journey. It really was.
And so his sacrifice and his going without met his standard of love. And so from his perspective, even though it might not have completely lined up with where Ned might have been at that moment in time, as far as he knew, he was loving me and he was protecting me. He was providing for me. And he was sacrificing for me.
Right.
And so I'm sorry, it creates this, I guess almost, I don't want to say a gray area, but it does create an area where it's kind of like, yeah, he might not have had all of those characteristics that I might identify as a strong man. Which ultimately, I just contradicted myself, Money. It is hard.
This is why we come to the throne room. We come to flesh out.
Because it really does require you to be able to have some standard criteria or standard characteristics that really matter to the collective, right? And so you must be able to, show compassion. You must be able to show that you are able to, lead and to stand on your square, as folks would say, in the sense of protecting your mate, your children, your household, your community. You must be able to, have a strong relationship that builds connectivity. And for me, I'm not going to speak to the masses, but for me, that connectivity starts with God. And so I'm able to trust my relationship with God to be able to bring my family to me and close to me and build off of that. And others might have other, faith-based or faith-driven initiatives, or even might just be, just the whole concept of family that they depend on and lean on. But there has to be something that allows you to stand on that square and say, hey, listen, when you come line up behind me, we're headed in the right direction. There's a clear present vision of where we're going. And you don't have to doubt, question, or try to figure it out. Like, I know that, hey, if I'm lining up with this individual who claims to be the man, the head, the pioneer, that I know where we're going, I know what we're doing, and I know why we're doing it.
Yeah. I want to take this because there's some people in here who are all church folks and stuff like that. And
I love them too. I love them.
I do. I love them too. And I'm going to appease that by just speaking on something really quick biblically about the parable of the strong man, or if you want to say parable of the burglar, or powerful man, however you would do it. But it talks about the strong man being fully armed, the one who guards his own house, his own dwellings, and ensures that his goods are safe, which goods that includes everything in it. And it talks about even when the burglar starts attacking them, he and even in some instances he overcomes them. He kind of goes back in and he says, listen, it's okay, and I'm going up and I'm going to take on my armor and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to fight.
You stay here and I'm going to go protect.
Right. And so when I hear you talk about your dad essentially being the protector, that is exactly what I heard from my dad. My dad, he's like, whatever. And he's like, why are you wearing that? And I'll be like, oh my God, I'm grown. Right. But that is who he's supposed to be to me. Right. Correct. He's supposed to be the one who get on the phone and I'll be like, why are you yelling at me? I'm not yelling. I'm just telling you because I love you. Like one of those things. But that's that essentially is what we see and what it is that we as women are looking for when we're looking for the men in our life, which is also why I think that a lot of women flock to wanting to hear a man's voice, right, about or hear their side of things, because we want to know how can we fit in this space so that we are protected and we can create and have the stability that we need to have. And so I like to continue this conversation, and maybe we can get into some more of what the Bible says about some of these things. But I'm doing that to say end all be all. It extends beyond just scripture, right? And we have to deal with what is the reality of the situations that people face. And sometimes it's very hard to take scripture and ingrain it and implant it in your life, especially if you have no understanding of who God is.
Correct.
And so what we want to do here is really start to develop and create a safe space whereby people can feel and know that, hey, I don't have to be God out, right? I don't have to be like saved, holy, sanctified in order for me to start to begin to have a relationship with myself
Mhm.
so that I can understand why I was created. And hopefully from there, I can begin the process of having another relationship with the higher power, whatever that
Absolutely.
higher power might be for you. So
Absolutely.
as I end that, I'm going to say, because we're taking this healing journey, what does a healed man look like?
Mm. So,
I'm sorry, I got to throw it on. It's our last 10 minutes. I got to throw it out there.
but at the last 10 minutes, she wants to throw that one out there. Wow. A healed man. Wow. So I would love, you know what? I'm going to do this, and I don't normally do this. That's to be continued conversation. I mean, I could go in my head right now. There's probably about 5 conversations happening at one time
Right.
because, because I'm still learning to heal myself. Right. And so when I look in the mirror, I still don't see a healed man. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, that's a deeper conversation because there's so many different pieces to it. The analogy that's in my head on the forefront is a scarred man, right?
Mm.
Because I'm dealing with multiple wounds, and I only scar because I've now started addressing the wounds, and they're just not covered up. I'm allowing them to heal, and I'm allowing them to get air so that they can start this process of mending. And so, yeah, there's some scars that come from wanting to become healed and become whole ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So question
Wow.
is, and the question really comes from a place of where I used to receive a lot of pushback. Do we ever
Hmm.
become fully healed here on earth?
Wow. So,
Sorry.
so
Is it always a plight of being
there's,
broken and
I,
being healed,
I
going through
think
the process of healing to be
there,
broken again, to go?
yes, yes, there
People,
is.
people don't always agree with me on
I
that.
do believe that to be the case. I don't think that we're ever really fully healed or wholly healed here in this fleshy body. I think that you're right. We are in a continual process of recycling. That
Right.
we are in an infancy stage where we learn, we develop, we grow, we bump our heads, we learn to correct that behavior, and then when we've developed to a certain point, a breaking happens. And then we have to do the process, that cycle. It's no different than when for those of us who've done training around building teams and building concepts, there is a continual cycle of building a team. You know,
Right.
that forming, norming, performing, all that happens over and over again in our life cycle. We're constantly reevaluating, reassessing, redeveloping ourselves. And every time you do that, you break and then you have to mend. You break
Mhm.
and then you have to mend. And because you're allowing yourself to grow. And that only happens when that happens. It's like, as much as I don't like it, it's kind of like the snake. It sheds its skin to grow. It has to break that skin off in order to develop and increase. And so I can't grow as an individual if I don't break the boy to become a young man. I can't become a mature man until I break the young man and become a mature adult. I have to break this man to become a senior and an older wisdom, as my mom would say, a seasoned saint. Like all of that happens, and yeah, so yeah, it doesn't ever stop. Thank you for just making that real for me, Monica.
I'm going to extend that to say then does the question or what we're seeking, is it really about being the healed man, or is it about what does the process of a
Mm,
spiritually mature man or woman
wow.
look like to heal, right? Because I think of it as, because it's a continuing thing, it's always a process. And as you said, we're learning and we're breaking again and we're learning new
Mhm.
things and we're doing things. And so there should be some characteristics and traits of the healing process, the journey that a man should have and should do and how they should respond to things that should allow us to be able to say, this is a person who has some type of spiritual maturity whereby they're ready for whatever encounter, relationship, or the next level of thing that is going to be brought into their life. And so I'll leave that to our next conversation as we go a little bit deeper about the journey, the strong man's journey to his healing, right? To healing. And so I thank you for your time, Brother Ned. I thank you for
always available
transparency and your tenacity and your courage to come on and have these conversations with us. I look forward to the things that are going to happen. I look forward to the people's responses. And
please respond.
Yeah, please send out your questions. We want to hear from you. We love the interaction. Like and share, bring more people to the conversation. If there's certain topics that you guys want to hear about, let us know. Put them in the comments. We want to hear about them so we can plan and prepare for them. Again, we're here. We won't be here next Wednesday, but we will be here the Wednesday after next, which is do we have the calendar? I don't even know if I have the calendar.
I don't have mine in front of me. We would do that, right?
Yeah. I think that is March 17th. Is that it? March 17th?
Yes, that is. 17th.
March 17th at 5 p.m. We want to see you back in the throne room. We want to see your questions. Please be ready. We're excited for you guys.
Absolutely.
As always, thank you for joining us in the throne room. Until next time, guys, remember, take the cover off.
Yes.